So the basic premise of the show is that Cameron Black is in fact two people, Cameron Black and Jonathan Black. They're twins, and this has been a secret they've been hiding for 30 years. And when the secret comes out, his career as a magician sort of takes quite a hit. And in order to find out who is to blame for revealing the secret, he ends up working with the FBI to help solve crimes that are committed with the help of an illusionist like him. Cameron Black is the world's greatest illusionist, or magician, stage magician, and he has his show in Vegas, and a big secret that he's been hiding for a long time comes out in our pilot, and that kind of dictates the rest of the show. I've been working with two very great magicians, Francis and David, who have been guiding me through everything that I've got to do for the pilot, and they have promised that if we go to series, then there'll be more and more to learn as we go forward, and then just to get me to a place where my comfort level is at least high enough that I'm no Cameron Black yet, but I can at least hopefully portray his level of comfort with magic is the idea. The differences between the two are really based in the way that their lives have gone thus far. Cameron has always been the on-stage persona. He's the real showman of the two, whereas Jonathan has generally been the guy in the box, hiding under the stage or in the shadows. And I think that's shaped the two of them, whether or not they started that way, those natural inclinations, but over 30 years, that's how they've kind of diverged, I guess. I think people will love the series because it has all of the ingredients that we love in an adventure, sort of an action-adventure show, but it also adds an element of mystery and magic that we don't really see. And it gets your brain working possibly more than most shows would, but it pays off in every way. It's got the comedy, it's got the action, it's got the adventure, so I really think that people will respond to all of it.
Basic premise of Deception is a master illusionist named Cameron Black, and his team of magicians join forces with Kay and her team of FBI agents to bring criminals to justice using their own illusion and deception. Kay is an agent at the New York office in the FBI, and that's kind of notoriously, in reality, known to be the kind of Wild West of FBI offices. Kay and Cameron are really similar because they're both extremely dedicated to what they do, and in turn are really, really good at what they do. So his passion being magic. It's more than a passion, really. It's his life. And Kay's is the FBI and cracking these cases and bringing one specific criminal to justice in this episode for really personal reasons. I was drawn to this project because, pilot season, you're tearing through 3 or 4 scripts a day, right? And you're thinking, oh God. And then you get one that's a page turner, and you flip to the front to see who wrote it, and you almost say thank you, right? So it's like, thank you, Chris Fedak, because it was such an easy read. Just entertaining. Like I said, magic, you can see these tricks happening, totally vivid, and really character-driven. And Cameron is a wonderful full character, and Kay is as well. These are people that you want to invest yourself in, and I feel I identify with her a lot too in a lot of ways. She's a really strong woman, and I've been really lucky to play pretty strong women in my career so far. I think people will love the series for the same reason I loved reading the pilot episode. Is you start with this massive Vegas set, and there is magic, and there is this intrigue with Cameron and his storyline with his twin brother Jonathan. And then there's also the FBI side. So you've got espionage, which is fascinating. You've got criminals using disguises and complex plans to go undetected, and car chases and explosions, and all these elements together to me are the recipe for a really great series.
Dina Clark is I like to think she's the eyes and ears and heartbeat of the show, the magic show that is Cameron Black's big spectacle. So she is the producer of the show, but she used to be a makeup artist, so she's all over the aesthetic of the show as well, plus the safety aspect. So she produces it, so she's everything. She multitasks throughout the show. My initial reaction to the script that Chris wrote was that I enjoyed the magic element and thinking this is going to be a huge production. There were some huge stunts in it. But in and amongst this, you had some really well thought out characters. And I loved the way that they interacted with each other and had a lot of shorthand with each other. You were able to buy into the world very quickly reading the script. Sort of 2-3 pages in to the big Vegas show, I felt like I was on the road with these guys who've been doing this for a long time. And that comes out in the dialogue, the banter between them all. Dina's relationship with Jonathan is very complex because they used to date. And the incident that lands him in jail, he's actually with another woman. And so she's privy to this affair that he's had. But I think she's a realist and she has sort of made peace with it because she knew who she was getting involved with. And the fact that Jonathan isn't a illusion artist and probably quite a first-class manipulator, I think she's taken it upon herself to, not be disappointed or surprised by him. And she's sort of said that, not that she deserves it, but that she should have seen it coming. Dina is the adult of the deception team because I think for her, she is able to really take in the whole show as a whole. She takes in people's individual roles and I assume she sort of facilitates each of them doing a good job. You've got Gunter, who is just about the safety aspects and his little department, and you've got Jordan's department, and then you've got Cameron is the front man. She has to have an overview on all of it. And I think she's also the thread that kind of makes them all work in harmony with each other. So she has to be the adult because if she throws a tantrum, everybody falls apart. Whereas she can put out individual fires where they're all allowed to have their little outbursts. I think people will love this series because it's different. If you like magic and enjoy magic, then there's that element of it. But I also think there's quite an elaborate show within a show. So our team are trying to solve this mystery using their own tactics of putting on their own show. So I just think that element is kind of fun. The characters are really cool. We support each other, although having very strong personalities that clash. There is a sort of love and a bond that I think is warm, that you'll want to return back to hanging out with these guys. And it's different. It's fun.
It's about twin brothers, the Black brothers, Cameron and Jonathan Black, and they were in the act for their dad previously, and now Cameron's taking it on. So they're using the twin brothers as a great illusion act, whereas they can, appear in Los Angeles or Vegas, disappear through a wall and walk out in Times Square. So, until that gets found out, it was a great show. Gunter, he is like right-hand man to Cameron, and he builds all the sets. So he comes up with all the ideas if they need stuff to work, the illusion to work. He gives me the idea, and then I have to work out how to do the illusions for him and build either whether it's a briefcase or something needs a compartment or some kind of magic. Then I build the sets for him. It was a no-brainer really for me to get involved. A 1-hour show. There's some comedy in there. There's some magic, which everybody loves the magic. There's some good guys, there's some baddies, and the FBI and all that kind of capers.
I think Jordan's function in the show is he's just part of this family, this team, consisting of the fellow magicians that help Cameron and Jonathan get to where they need to go. And Jordan specifically, I think he's Cameron's cheerleader in the male form. The chemistry between the cast on set has been magical. I've really enjoyed working with Jack and Lenora and Gunter. I specifically really love working with Gunter because he's like the and I'm like the oh. So I just feel like we're such a great duo. And I grew up watching all of Vinnie Jones' films, so like it's just a pleasure to work with him. To be honest, when I heard the initial premise just as like a one-liner, you're like, this can go two ways. This can be super cheesy or this can be really interesting. And once I actually got a hold of the script and read it, I was completely floored. I was really surprised how it was all laid out and kind of executed in such a smart way. So after reading the script, I was completely on board. I feel people will love Deception because it's all-encompassing in terms of, magic. Who doesn't love watching magic? And the fact that every episode we're pulling off some sort of heist or illusion right in front of the audience's eyes, that's just, that's very entertaining. Also, there's a, procedural aspect to it with us solving crimes or capturing criminals. And, yeah, so it's all-encompassing. From young to old, I think there's something in it for everybody.
We have an illusionist working for the FBI, trying to figure out who framed his brother of a crime he didn't commit. But at the same time, he's going to be helping us figure out crimes. Agent Mike Alvarez, he's a father of two, so he's definitely a family man, but very serious about his job. And he takes this, seriously. He takes this as his passion. He's got a beautiful partnership with Agent Kay Daniels. They've been working together for quite a while. You can tell in their bantering back and forth. There's definitely a relationship of friendship, a brotherhood and sisterhood between them. In this initial episode, we find out that Agent Mike Alvarez is a fan of magic. He's a big fan of Cameron, and he is a little bit starstruck about having him around. So there's a little bit of a childlike demeanor that Mike has. I read the script and I was in love with it because it's new. I'm a magic fan as well, like Mike. As a kid, and I think everybody does this. Every time we look at a magician or illusionist do something, we're trying to figure out how they're doing it. Magic is something that we're all somewhat curious about it. We all want to we all wish we can do it. We all want to figure out how it's done. And I said, this is something that, listen, there's all these shows about cops and FBIs, and I'm not saying this is any different. I believe it's got a different element to it that people are gonna gravitate to and find interesting. We'll talk about Jack doing a phenomenal job playing two roles, twins. It's just fascinating to watch. I think people are going to be hooked. They're in for a ride.
When people ask me what the premise of the series is, I guess I put it in a nutshell: the magic meets the FBI, and how this magician sort of helps us out in with his disguises and his illusions and tricking people into things. And at first, my character is very reticent to buy into this idea. So I'm sort of the naysayer at the beginning of the show. Janet Deakins is the head of the FBI in that area, and she sort of sends everybody out into the field to do their work, although the writers have intimated that perhaps I'm itching to be back on the street, so we'll see, maybe eventually I'll go back on the street as well. I was drawn to this project partly because I live in New York City, and I'd love to have a job in New York City, but partly because I just found the dialogue really easy. You know, sometimes you can tell if something's going to flow when you read the script. Often things are a little staid, or they seem a little formal, or it doesn't feel like people talking, and I think the writers are so good at making it very conversational and witty and fun and smart. The people are kind of talking in a shorthand. You know, things aren't overly over-explained. It seems very natural to me, and I am always looking for writing like that because that's easier to act. Jack, who plays the lead, he's learned all this magic to do the role. And he was doing a card trick for me, and I just love it when I don't know what's going on, you know? It's fun to I guess you've lost control if you're fooled, right? And it's fun to lose control. The chemistry on the set has been wonderful. We've all been having lots of chuckles together, you know, and being shushed by the first AD so we can get some work done, because we're all enjoying each other a lot. And there's already kind of a camaraderie and a warmth throughout, and we're kind of got each other's backs and understanding the process, you know, going from being at home with your script to being in the room with the actual people. It's a process, and people have to understand that process.
Basic premise of Deception is a story about a disgraced illusionist, Cameron Black, and how he kind of puts his life back together again by helping the FBI solve crimes. But that's only the first part of it. There's a second part. He also helps the FBI deceive and trick criminals. So it's a kind of a two-part show. One part of it is a procedural, a cop show about solving crimes. The other part of it is tricking those criminals who are trying to get past the FBI. And it's a lot of fun. And that's why we think of it as Magician Impossible. Well, in the pilot episode, we actually do a lot. You know, we have a couple of very big set pieces. We have a disappearing plane. We have, you know, our final set piece, you know, with a blind drive. But for each week, we'll essentially take one illusion concept, like, say, the illusion of choice or misdirection, and build an episode around that. And also kind of tie into how our characters kind of look at the episode, and also the set piece that we're building to based around that idea. So, for instance, when it comes to misdirection, what kind of fun can we have by taking the audience's perspective and skewing it one way or another? You know, so that essentially they're looking at it from the perspective of the audience. And then over the course of the episode, we make them like the magician. We show you behind the scenes. We show you how this thing's going to work and how we figure it out. And also, can we pull it off? Because one of the things that any magician will tell you is there's this natural drama, because not all magic tricks work. And so in this case, if a magic trick doesn't work, people could die. And that's the fun of the show. One of the most important things to us, and also working with David Kwong, our magician and consultant on the show, was that we only want to do tricks inside the show that are actually real, that you can do. Now, some of those tricks we have to go back and help ourselves with visual effects, but everything we do in the show is based on something that a real magician could do in the real world. So there's no, this is impossible. It's actually doable. And so we have an actual magic department headed up by David Kwong, who we work together in the story, in the writing of the story, to go, how would this actually work? How would a magician do it? And that's the amazing thing about working with David, is that he can show you how the actual magic works. Why I think this is such a timely show for today is because we live in an age where, you know, essentially everything is on computers. And we've learned that anyone can hack anything, from the government to my cell phone. And I think that criminals know that as well. So we're finding out that, like, people need to go back to the old forms of spycraft, the old forms of lying and cheating and stealing. And that, in a way, the FBI needs someone like Cameron Black, someone who's a master in that already. And he's going to train them and help them do that. In our show, we have Cameron, who's this effusive, enigmatic, exciting, up on stage, front of house personality. And then his brother, Jonathan, is the opposite of that. Smart, cerebral, a rebel, edgy. And the two of them are very different characters. And the way Jack plays them is exciting. In our show, as we come into it, Jonathan is in jail, so he'll be trapped there for a while. And then we have then we have Cameron, who's, this, charismatic guy. And he only really comes to life when he's up on stage. Cameron needs the stage. He needs to be up there. That's where he's happiest. And so for him, when his life is ruined and his career kind of falls apart, there's a part of him that's really stolen away, and he's looking for that stage. And so he can't become a performer anymore. He can't go back to Vegas. He's not allowed to do that. But you know what? With the FBI, in these cases, he gets a chance to perform again. Even though his life's on the line, he has to do it. He loves to be up on stage. He loves to be doing this. He loves to be a magician. And that's a fun story that we want to get into. We want to explore all aspects of Cameron's backstory and over multiple seasons, and we have so much stuff. We want to learn about the father, and how that worked. And Jack brings such depth to the character that it's even in the pilot, there was just want to do more.
I've worked a lot with the FBI, and what they're saying more and more is, criminals, the smart ones, are becoming a lot more analog. They're not using all the online stuff anymore because they realize we can track them there. So they're going to old school Cold War magical and illusion tactics to kind of evade capture. And so what Cameron Black is able to do is he's not only able to track down and uncover these old school techniques that are evading law enforcement, but he's also able to trap people in very unique and original ways. The show's going to show a lot of different concepts of illusion and magic, but we've been very careful to make them be kind of like base elements of magic. So we know that some people that watch the show don't want everything ruined for them. They want to be surprised. And then some of the audience, all they want to know is how the tricks are done. And so we've struck a very nice balance in the pilot, and that's our guide kind of going forward is we're going to give these elemental pieces of magic to explain how these deceptions are done, but it won't ruin bigger or giant tricks. So it's we're not going to Penn and Teller's not going to write us a terrible letter and be like, you ruined my thing. Or David Copperfield's not going to be like, that I worked on that song in Woman and a Half for years and now everyone knows. We're not going to be giving those away. But we're going to be giving the kind of root elementary steps on how illusion is built that I think the audience will find super fascinating. I think people love magic because, it's so hard to suspend disbelief. We've become kind of such a jaded population. But when somebody does something really close in front of you and something impossible happens, it kind of rewires your brain and gets you excited about the mysteries of the world again. And so great magic kind of makes you feel alive. It kind of wakes you from your day-to-day drudgery and just being like, oh man, there really is something super special and unique in these little moments. And it's that's what's really exciting about magic. Jack Cutmore-Scott is a huge find. I mean, you have no idea as producers of television, you sit through kind of these endless casting sessions. And when somebody like Jack kind of comes in, you straighten up and go how is this guy not the lead in a major TV show somewhere? What's so exciting about Deception is I think it's the world will get to meet Jack for the first time. He's giving a extraordinary performance. Jack does all of the magic in the pilot completely on his own. We have brought in so many magician consultants. They work with him for an hour and they walk away kind of with a stunned look on their face because they literally this guy could be a professional magician. His sleight of hand ability is bar none. A lot of people will think, again, because it's a TV show, the opening shot of the show is Jack giving a kind of 90-second monologue while doing 7 magic tricks. He does them all. It's all in camera. That is all Jack, and it's one of the most amazing. I just want to get out into the world that that's real, that he really did that. So, yeah. And aside from that, he's a really good actor, too. But most importantly, what a gifted magician.
So Deception is a really fun world. We meet Cameron Black, who is a sort of top of the charts magician, kind of the best of the best. He's up there sort of somewhere between David Blaine, Chris Angel, and David Copperfield. He is enjoying his success, and he very much acts like a man who's entitled to success. And then a sort of illusion seemingly goes wrong, doesn't, but his big secret that has allowed him to practice such incredible magic is revealed, at which point he is no longer able to perform magic, sadly, and he becomes obsessed with the person who was responsible for his downfall, and that leads him straight into an incredible FBI team investigating a illusionist as well. So they team up, and then as much as they don't like each other, sparks fly, and a team is born. Well, we have a magic consultant who's our co-producer, David Kwong, who is a very well-established magician who had been consulting for us on our show Blind Spot. And so when we wanted to do a show about magicians, we kind of brought David into it. David had also been a consultant on Now You See Me, and so he was quite he's has a great background in story. He had actually worked in development, so he kind of knows how to do puzzles and magic for storytelling and for narrative, and so he's been invaluable through this whole process. Everybody says they're not a fan of magic. People think that magicians are really dorky and that it's like funny and ridiculous and embarrassing, and yet when you actually see someone perform magic in front of you, you have to admit begrudgingly that it's really cool. And I think that's the experience. I actually tried to develop years ago a comedy about magicians, but ultimately, like, when you see a magician doing magic tricks, it's really cool because you can't, if they're good, you cannot figure out how they did it. And it defies, it sort of makes your brain hurt in this great way. So I think that if you don't like magic, you're not being honest with yourself, because everybody kind of likes magic. I think that what makes Deception unique from the very beginning is certainly the magic, and seeing magic up close and seeing it sort of dissected and seeing these sort of great old TV specials I grew up with, like Where Did the Statue of Liberty Go? Seeing kind of behind the scenes and how that trick actually comes to be is, I think, really a lot of fun. But I think the reason why audiences will stay is because they'll really fall in love with these characters. And I think it is that team that brings so much sort of joy to this hour as you go on adventures. And I think also a lot of what makes Deception special is Chris Fedak. Chris created Chuck, and so he really knows how to do an action-packed comedic hour. And I think there were a lot of people that were very devoted fans of Chuck because of Chris's voice. And so to see him do this in this sort of like, he calls it Magician Impossible. So it's our version of Mission Impossible, and I think it's really fun. I think the world will enjoy the diversion.
We won the lottery with Jack Cutmore-Scott. He is an absolute natural at sleight of hand. I'm going to be very annoyed if he turns into a better magician than I am by the time this series is over. He had messed around with the tricks as a kid. He had the facility already, and it just took a few lessons and he was off to the races. He is incredibly talented. In each episode, Cameron and his team will perform real magic tricks to the home audience watching through their television screen. We want them doing real, practical illusions, no camera tricks and edits. This will be magic that you would experience if you were right there watching them. Serving as Deception's magic consultant has been an absolute dream come true because it marries together everything that I love: illusion and television and storytelling, and it was an absolute thrill for me to take my knowledge and the skills that I have and put them right into storytelling. There are some incredible magic tricks in Deception. We have a huge, big Vegas stage show with a Houdini tribute, but I think my favorite thing in the pilot is how Cameron Black uses the illusion of free choice, that is, making you think that you are having all the decisions yourself to save the day in the end. I don't want to say any more.
Following the pilot on a week-to-week basis, Deception will be an action mystery. It'll be self-contained, but there is a bit of mythology to go through in terms of who Cameron Black is and the mysterious world sort of that surrounds him as a magician. But there's self-contained FBI, mystery storytelling and high-octane adventure. So Ilfanesh Hedera, who plays Kay Daniels, is another, I think, fresh face and is someone who's going to really pop off of this television show. She has the strength and determination of the character of Kay. Her and Jack have tremendous chemistry, and that's obviously at the root of any series like this, is hoping that your two leads have that comedic sort of straight man, as it were, kind of ability to bounce off of each other, and they both have that. I think the show is equal parts action, adventure, and humor, and will stay as such. I think that's what makes it so successful. Is it kind of diverts from one of those things to another, and allows for each of them. David Kwan is truly a genius. I don't say that lightly. I don't use that word a lot. But if you've ever seen him, he doesn't just solve New York Times crossword puzzles and do magic. He actually creates New York Times crossword puzzles and does magic. He's truly just an extraordinary person, and we're so lucky to have him involved in the show.
Parker. Ready, and 3, 2, 1, go!
He helped Felix Ruiz escape from the FBI.
Basically, we do the roundy round to him there. We're gonna go this way. Yeah, we're gonna go over. Him and around. Yeah, fine.
Lock yourself in your workshop for a few months, and then voila, it's possible.
Don't you voila me, you preening peacock. Look at you. Jordan! Is he set?
Easy, Gunter. You're making a face.
What? Which one?
Deranged killer or evil prison guard. So toss up. He's set.
And boom! Hit and boom! Hit, boom!
How's our guest?
Talkative. Let's get him tucked in.
Yes, boom! Yes, boom!
Now! Here, the gun down!
Drop it!
I couldn't have done it without my beautiful assistant.